CNN is on the ground near the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk, where city officials say the Russians are again targeting civilians with missile strikes on the city. Joining me live from Pokrovsk, which is close to the front lines there, is CNN senior international correspondent Frederick Pleitgen. So, Fred, I know you were in Kramatorsk earlier today, quite close to some of these attacks. Now, two attacks, right? One overnight, and as we mentioned, one happening as rescuers were coming into that apartment complex.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. There was a first attack that happened overnight in Kramatorsk and hit a residential building. The Ukrainians are saying that it was hit, Bianna, by an Iskander missile, which is a pretty heavy surface-to-surface missile with a big warhead. A building was pretty much flattened by that strike. The Ukrainians are saying that 3 people were killed, 1 person was still missing. So at that site, there was an active search and rescue operation going on. It was a big search and rescue operation with a lot of cranes being in use. More than 100 police officers alone were at the scene. Now, we went to Kramatorsk earlier today to film some of what was going on there, some of that search and rescue operation. As we arrived in Kramatorsk, at the site of that first blast, as we parked our cars and got out, there was a second missile attack targeting the building that we had just parked in front of. So I would say that the first missile hit about 40 or 50 yards away from where we were. It was a giant blast. You could also tell it was a very big missile. Obviously, a lot of people then went running for cover. We also tried to make our way to safety to a hardened location. And as we were going there, I turned around and looked up, and I saw a second missile hit the exact same building once again. Now, the Ukrainians are saying that there were further people who were wounded in that attack. They say that this time it was two S-300 missiles that struck in that second strike. Those are normally used to shoot down airplanes, Bianna, and if they're used against ground targets, they're very inaccurate. And of course, if they're used against ground targets in densely populated urban centers, it makes things all the more dangerous. However, the bottom line of the whole thing was that there was a place where there was an active search and rescue operation, and that place was targeted in a densely populated area once again today by the Russian military, Bianna.
I mean, it has the hallmarks of yet another war crime committed by Russians, Fred, and this is coming as EU officials are in Kyiv today, and Ukrainians continue with their 2 main asks. One is that fast-track membership to join the EU, and the other is for more advanced long-range weaponry, ATACMS, and obviously F-16s. Any indication that either one of these asks will be granted anytime soon?
Yeah, I think right now Western governments, as far as those fighter jets are concerned, they're really saying that at the moment that's not something that's in the cards. That doesn't necessarily mean that down the line it's not something that could possibly happen, but I think right now it's going to be very difficult to do that. One of the things, of course, that the Ukrainians would really want is those longer range missiles. That's something, I've spoken to so many Ukrainian officials over the past couple of weeks that we've been here in the country, and all of them say longer distance weapons are absolutely necessary. They need them, they say, to stop some of those Russian logistics lines that have been put further away from the front line by the Russians to avoid some of the multiple rocket launching systems that the Ukrainians have, but also, for instance, to prevent the Russians from conducting strikes like the ones that we saw today, which happened from a further distance. Those missiles can travel a pretty far distance, and the Ukrainians say they need something to be able to stop that from happening. Now, currently that's not the case. The missiles that the Russians use today, almost impossible to intercept. So the Ukrainians are saying we need to hit those things before they can actually take off. In order to do that, they need longer range missiles. So that is definitely very high on what the on the agenda of what the Ukrainians want, and they hope that they get it from the U.S. and possibly from the U.S.'s allies as well, Bianna.
Yeah, and all this is happening as Russia is planning for a new front, right, anytime soon, and a new offensive. Ukraine planning for a counteroffensive there as well. Fred Pleitgen on the ground, thank you so much. Stay safe.